Welcome back to HOA Uncensored, where the lawns are trimmed, the bylaws are weaponized, and somebody always owns a clipboard that should require a waiting period. Today, one woman reports a treehouse and accidentally helps create the most heavily documented wildlife observation tower in suburban history. Tell me where you are listening from, because I need to know whether your neighborhood also treats plywood like organized crime. All right. Let us climb into this one. The first sign of trouble was a cream-colored envelope wedged beneath the brass frog on my porch at 6:42 on a Tuesday morning. It had the Briar Glen Estates crest embossed in forest green, although the crest was just two oak leaves surrounding the Latin phrase Concordia per regulationem, which apparently meant harmony through making everyone miserable. The paper was thick enough to stop a small-caliber thought. Inside was a notice of unauthorized elevated recreational structure concerning the treehouse behind my home at 114 Lantern Fox Lane. The notice called it an aerial nuisance, which made it sound as though my 12-year-old daughter, Lucy, had established an airport. It ordered removal within 10 calendar days and assessed an initial fine of $375, followed by $75 per day. I read it twice while wearing pizza socks and holding coffee that had already gone cold, which is how I receive most major developments in my life. Then I looked through the kitchen window at the alleged aerial nuisance. The treehouse sat 14 feet above the ground in a red oak near the back edge of our half-acre lot. It was 8 feet by 10 feet, stained cedar brown, with a green metal roof and 3 square windows. I had built it for Lucy after her mother, my wife Anna, died 3 years earlier. Anna had loved birds with the focused intensity other people reserve for championship football and suspicious neighborhood gossip. She could identify a cedar waxwing from one blurry feather and a disapproving chirp. Lucy and I had spent 7 Saturdays building the treehouse from sketches Anna left in a spiral notebook. The last page contained a drawing of a tiny cabin among branches and the words, "Best seat in the neighborhood." Lucy kept Anna's old binoculars up there beside a field guide, 2 beanbags, and a jar containing $17 in emergency gummy bear money. So no, it was not just lumber. I renovate commercial buildings for a living, mostly libraries, clinics, and municipal offices, where every handrail has 6 opinions attached to it. I know load paths, permits, fastener schedules, and the particular facial expression a city inspector makes when somebody says, "My cousin told me I didn't need approval." When I built the treehouse, I used structural screws, engineered brackets, guardrails 42 inches high, and footings that could have supported a modest lighthouse. The city had classified it as an accessory play structure and required no permit because it was under 120 square feet. The HOA Architectural Committee had approved it in writing 11 months earlier. I had the email. At 8:03, before I could finish reheating my coffee, the person responsible arrived. Patricia Wexler, president of the Briar Glen Estates Homeowners Association, drove up in a white golf cart with a flashing amber beacon, 2 side mirrors, and a laminated placard reading, "Official Community Business." The cart moved at 9 miles per hour, but carried itself like a presidential motorcade crossing hostile territory. Patricia stepped out wearing a coral floral tracksuit that looked like a hibiscus garden had been fired from a confetti cannon at a sofa. Her silver visor matched her sneakers. Under one arm she carried a navy clipboard embossed with her initials, PMW, in gold. Patricia had never explained the middle initial, but several neighbors believed it stood for mandatory. "Mr. Carter," she called. Her voice had the tonal warmth of a smoke detector explaining your casserole choices. "I trust you received the association's enforcement correspondence." "Good morning, Patricia." She raised the clipboard with the solemnity of a judge presenting a warrant to a hydrangea. "Your treehouse violates Article 7, Section 4, Paragraph C, which prohibits elevated structures that create visual intrusion, attract non-resident wildlife, or permit observation into adjoining parcels." "Which part?" I asked. Her mouth tightened like a purse clasp catching a finger. "All applicable portions." The structure was approved by the Architectural Committee on September 18th at 2:16 p.m. You replied, "Looks charming. Approved." That approval was based on incomplete facts. The application included 12 drawings, 4 photographs, the height, the dimensions, and a sample of the roof. It did not disclose the avian concentration. I looked toward the feeder hanging 30 feet away. A chickadee landed, took 1 seed, and left without signing in. How many birds constitute a concentration? I asked. Patricia turned a page as briskly as a pharmacist refusing a coupon. This is not a debate. At 7:14 Sunday morning, I personally observed 9 birds in or around that oak. 9. At once. Were they organized? She stared at me. Behind her, the amber beacon continued rotating in broad daylight, warning passing squirrels that authority was idling nearby. You have 10 days, she said. After that, daily fines accrue. Under Article 12, Section 2, the association may recover legal expenses, inspection fees, and enforcement costs. I strongly recommend compliance. And I strongly recommend turning off the beacon before the mail carrier lands. She made a noise like a goose, discovering it had been charged a resort fee, climbed into the cart, and drove away. I smiled until she turned the corner. Then I went inside and sat at the kitchen table. The approval email was strong. The city exemption was stronger. But HOA disputes do not operate entirely inside the laws of reason. They operate in a humid side dimension, where a person can spend $6,000 proving that a $375 fine was ridiculous. I had mortgage payments, Lucy had braces coming, and grief had already taken enough from our house without Patricia arriving to inventory the leftovers. At 4:10 that afternoon, Lucy came home, saw the notice, and went quiet. "Do we have to take Mom's treehouse down?" she asked. "No," I said. I did not know exactly how yet, but I said it with enough confidence to qualify as temporary scaffolding. Patricia escalated before breakfast the next day. At 7:05, the neighborhood Facebook group received a 612-word post titled, "Safety Concerns Require Unity." She described the treehouse as an unregulated platform facilitating surveillance and wildlife aggregation. She included a photograph taken over my side fence, a yellow circle around a blue jay, and a red arrow pointing toward Lucy's binoculars. The comments developed like milk left in a hot car. Gary Bell from number 82 wrote, "That blue jay has been casing my grill." Patricia replied, "The board has authority over all nuisances occurring within community boundaries." At 8:22, I saved screenshots. I created a folder called Operation Bird Crime and began an evidence log. Contractors document everything, because the difference between "you said" and "you signed" is usually $18,000 and a month of your life. On Thursday, a second notice arrived assessing a $125 inspection fee. No inspection had occurred. On Friday, Patricia parked her pristine white Lexus halfway across my driveway and emerged wearing khaki trousers, ironed so sharply they looked capable of opening mail. The clipboard was now joined by a laser distance meter. "I am here for the mandatory compliance inspection," she said, her tone smooth as a stapler dragged across porcelain. I did not schedule one. Article 9, Section 8, Paragraph B, permits reasonable access to verify exterior violations. The gate is locked. Then unlock it. No. Patricia blinked twice, as though the word had arrived without architectural approval. Refusal will be documented. Please document that I refused an unscheduled entry onto private property by someone carrying a consumer laser. She lifted the device and aimed it over the fence. I stepped between her and the yard. "Patricia, do not measure my daughter through a fence." For 1 second, my temper rose hot and quick. She had turned Anna's little drawing into a case file, and Lucy into an obstruction. My hand tightened around my mug. The coffee, naturally, was cold again. Then I remembered every project meeting where shouting had transformed a simple problem into 12 emails and a consultant. I took out my phone instead. "I'm recording," I said. "Would you like to repeat the purpose of your visit?" Her face rearranged itself into the cautious dignity of a raccoon noticing the trash can has a camera. "The association is ensuring community safety." "From what?" "Unauthorized observation. You are standing in my driveway trying to observe my backyard." Patricia lowered the laser. "Daily fines begin Monday," she said. You may appeal at the next board meeting. The appeal was scheduled for 9 a.m. on a Wednesday, when most residents worked. I arrived at the clubhouse with a binder containing the approval, plans, photos, city code, and a timeline. Patricia sat beneath a banner reading "Building Community Together." It hung crooked, as if even the vinyl wanted distance from the proceedings. Board members Douglas Peel and Susan Kim sat beside her. Douglas looked like a man who had been told there would be donuts and discovered jurisprudence instead. Susan gave me a tiny nod. Patricia read from a prepared statement for 11 minutes. She cited Article 7 6 times, community character 9 times, and potential liability with the enthusiasm of someone who had recently learned the phrase. When my turn came, I placed the approval email in front of her. "Is this your address?" I asked. "The issue is not whether an email was sent. Is that your name? The committee acts based on representations made at the time. Did you write approved?" Patricia leaned back with the posture of a monarch whose throne had asked for identification. "The board reserves the right to correct administrative errors under Article 3, Section 11, Paragraph F. That paragraph concerns misspelled owner names." Douglas stopped reaching for a powdered donut. Susan asked, "Patricia, did council review this enforcement action?" "Council does not need to review routine matters. You threatened a lien," Susan said. "A standard remedy." The board voted 2-1 to uphold the violation. Susan voted no. Douglas voted yes, after Patricia reminded him that board unity was essential, which is apparently how democracy works when pastries are involved. By the following Monday, my alleged balance was $1,025. The original $375. 5 daily fines totaling $375, a $125 inspection fee, and a $150 administrative processing assessment. Patricia taped a red notice to my front door at 6:58 a.m., despite having mailed the same notice certified. She wanted the neighbors to see it. I nearly called her. Instead, I added the time to my spreadsheet, warmed my coffee, forgot it on the counter, and called the city planning department. That call led me to Dr. Calvin "Cal" Rourke. Cal was the wildlife habitat coordinator for fictional Alder County, a title that sounded gentle until you met him. He stood 6'4", wore a canvas vest with 22 pockets, and was shaped like a refrigerator that had learned to identify warblers. His beard spread across his chest like a gray weather system. When I entered his office, he was using a letter opener to retrieve a pickle from a jar while dictating notes about owl boxes. "You're the Treehouse fellow," he said. "Apparently I'm facilitating wildlife aggregation." Cal paused with the pickle halfway to freedom. "That may be the most ambitious accusation ever made against a chickadee." I showed him the notices, the photos, and Anna's notebook. He became quiet at the last page. "My wife had a neighborhood tyrant once," he said. "Woman tried to ban native milkweed because butterflies were unscheduled visitors. People like that don't hate nature. They hate anything that doesn't recognize their rank. I would have followed him anywhere, including into the pickle jar." Cal examined my plans. He asked about the oak, the footing locations, sight lines, nearby habitat, and whether we had documented species from the platform. "Lucy has a list," I said. Lucy's notebook contained 38 bird species observed over 11 months, plus eastern gray squirrels, 2 foxes, 1 opossum, and an animal she had labeled either a vole or a nervous potato. More importantly, she had photographed a pair of silver-crowned thrushes, a locally protected migratory species, nesting in the greenbelt behind our property. Cal looked at the photograph, then at me. "This is not merely a play structure," he said. "It is an established observation site, adjacent to a mapped wildlife corridor. Can the city recognize that?" His smile appeared slowly, like sunrise over a lumber yard. "Mr. Carter, how would your daughter feel about upgrading her treehouse?" The plan took shape over 90 minutes, and half a jar of pickles. Alder County operated a backyard habitat stewardship program. Qualifying properties could register observation platforms used for citizen science monitoring, provided they met structural, accessibility, habitat, and reporting standards. A certified wildlife observation tower was governed by County Environmental Code 18.44 not the city's ordinary recreational structure rule. State law protected approved conservation features from private covenants that unreasonably restricted their function, provided the owner followed a published review process. This was not a loophole where I changed a sign and declared victory. The existing treehouse needed real modifications: independent support posts to protect the oak, a code-compliant stairway instead of a ladder, an enclosed lower landing, anti-collision window markers, a rainwater collection barrel, 2 approved nesting boxes, a directional viewing screen, and calibrated observation equipment. The platform would also have to host 4 supervised public monitoring sessions each year. The total cost was $8,740 before donated materials. That was frightening, until I compared it with losing the place Anna had imagined and hiring an attorney merely to be told I was right in a more expensive font. "I want everything clean," I told Cal. "No tricks, no corner cutting." "Good," he said. "A corner is where people like Patricia store their appeals." Before acting, I retained land use attorney Evelyn Shaw for a fixed $950 review. Evelyn was 5 feet 2, wore red glasses, and spoke with the precision of a librarian, informing a chainsaw that it was overdue. She reviewed every governing document and notice. "You must send the board a complete application 30 days before construction," she said. "They may impose reasonable aesthetic conditions. They may not prohibit the certified function. If they fail to respond within 21 days, the application is deemed approved under their own Article 6, Section 9. Patricia does not fail to respond." Evelyn looked over her glasses. "Then give her enough rope to write a denial." We submitted a 76-page application at 3:17 p.m. on April 8th. It included stamped engineering, county pre-approval, color samples, drainage calculations, a bird-safe lighting plan, photographs, a maintenance schedule, a $2 million liability rider, and a cover letter asking the architectural committee to identify any proposed reasonable aesthetic conditions within 21 days. Patricia responded at 3:31. Denied. Treehouse must be removed. 14 minutes. She could not have opened the drainage appendix in that time unless she absorbed PDFs through her visor. Evelyn sent a formal notice explaining the state protection and offering a meeting. Patricia replied to all 146 homeowners. No resident may evade association authority by inventing a government designation. She attached our entire application, including the county letter confirming eligibility. That email became important later. The county held its public review on April 22nd. Cal, the county building official, a city planner, and an arborist, approved the plan with 3 minor conditions. The permit number was AWC 26-0417. The observation site received the provisional name Lantern Fox Wildlife Station. Lucy selected the name and designed a small sign with a silver-crowned thrush above it. At 7:30 on the first Saturday in May, a flatbed arrived carrying 12 posts, stair sections, cedar siding, steel brackets, and enough concrete to make the oak feel it had acquired security personnel. At 8:05, Cal arrived in a county pickup. At 8:12, arborist Miguel Santos began installing root zone barriers. Miguel had shoulders like a wardrobe being moved sideways, and laughed like a lawnmower starting on the first pull. Lucy stood in the driveway, wearing Anna's binoculars and a yellow hard hat, 3 sizes too large. Patricia arrived at 8:19. The golf cart stopped so abruptly that her clipboard slid off the passenger seat. She wore a lavender windbreaker covered in white blossoms, making her look like a decorative tissue box responding to a gas leak. "Stop all work!" she shouted. Nobody stopped. Miguel was operating a post-hole auger, which gave her declaration the authority of a whispered suggestion inside a tornado. She marched toward me. "You were explicitly denied permission under Article 6, Section 2, Paragraph A. Good morning, Patricia. Do not good morning me while committing a violation." I handed her a clear document sleeve containing the county permit, the city inspection card, the arborist plan, and Evelyn's notice. "This is permitted work on a protected conservation feature. It is a treehouse. It was. Now it's becoming a certified wildlife observation tower." Her face went still. like a computer encountering a password written on the monitor. You cannot simply rename a prohibited structure. Cal approached, moving with the relaxed confidence of a bear who had read the municipal code. He didn't, Cal said. The county classified it after structural and environmental review. I'm Dr. Calvin Rourke, Habitat Coordinator. Patricia examined his county badge as though hoping to find it printed in crayon. The HOA denied this application. 14 minutes after receiving it, I said. Efficiency is not evidence of misconduct. Neither is a blue jay. She lifted the clipboard between us. Article 9, Section 8 gives the association inspection rights. I am ordering you to grant immediate access so I can verify the nature and extent of this unauthorized construction. Evelyn had predicted this. I pointed to the temporary safety fence around the work zone. Not during construction. You may attend the final public inspection on May 29th at 10 a.m. The county will be here. The city will be here. You'll receive written notice. I do not need an invitation to perform my official duties. Today you do. Patricia's nostrils flared like two tiny garage doors confronting a zoning variance. She photographed every truck, every board, Cal, Miguel, Lucy's sign, and my cold coffee on the porch rail. Then she left, amber beacon flashing in offended circles. For 27 days, we transformed the structure properly. 4 6x6 posts carried the platform independently, so the oak could move and grow. A 2-flight staircase replaced the ladder. Cedar slats screened the side facing the nearest home. Inside, we installed a spotting scope, weather sensor, 2 acoustic bird monitors, and citizen science tablet. The roof fed a 50-gallon rain barrel, supplying a shallow wildlife basin. The finished tower stood 19 feet 6 inches at the roof peak, 5.5 feet taller than the original treehouse. It remained handsome, but it was no longer a child's fort pretending to be a building. It looked like a tiny ranger station had climbed a tree and obtained excellent insurance. Patricia responded with daily posts. She called it Carter Tower, a quasi-commercial surveillance facility, and, in one memorable email, an existential challenge to the pastoral unity of Briar Glen. Gary Bell printed that phrase on a mug. She also raised my account balance to $3,925, including 29 daily fines, 2 inspection fees, and a $1,100 legal review charge. Evelyn demanded invoices for the legal review. The HOA produced none. At 9:15 on May 29th, neighbors began gathering for the final inspection. We had invited the entire association because the county certification process required public notice. Folding chairs lined the lower garden. Lucy set out lemonade and cookies shaped like birds. Gary arrived wearing a shirt that said, "Existential Challenge," in green letters. Susan Kim came with 3 board binders. Douglas Peel brought donuts, having finally understood the relationship between attendance and survival. County Building Inspector Martin Voss arrived at 9:42, a narrow man with the exhausted eyes of someone who had inspected a homemade balcony supported by exercise equipment. Officer Daniel Ruiz pulled in at 9:51 after Patricia reported active unlawful occupation of airspace. He surveyed the tower, cookies, county vehicles, and 37 residents holding binoculars. "Which part is the emergency?" he asked. "We're waiting for Patricia," I said. Officer Ruiz sighed like a tire losing air in a quiet garage. "Of course we are." At exactly 10 o'clock, Patricia's golf cart entered the cul-de-sac, with its beacon flashing, and a new magnetic sign on the side. HOA Inspection Unit. She had mounted a small siren under the dashboard. It emitted one electronic chirp as she parked, causing 3 finches to leave on principle. Patricia wore white slacks, a turquoise polo embroidered with the Briar Glen crest, and a wide-brimmed hat better suited to negotiating the Louisiana Purchase. Her clipboard had acquired a red folder marked Enforcement. Behind her came Leonard Pike, a private property inspector she had hired without a board vote. Leonard looked apologetic before his feet touched the pavement. "This inspection is under HOA authority," Patricia announced. Her voice cut through the yard like a butter knife discovering electricity. "No county certification can proceed until the association has completed its independent review pursuant to Article 9, Section 8, Paragraph B." Martin Voss checked his watch. The county inspection is proceeding now. Patricia pointed at me. This owner has repeatedly denied lawful access. I am entering the property to document every violation. Patricia, I said, you are welcome to attend as a member of the public. You must follow the posted safety rules, remain with the group, and wait until Inspector Voss opens the tower. At the gate, a sign listed the rules. Maximum 8 people on the upper deck. Use handrails. Remain behind marked barriers. No food above the lower landing. And do not approach active nesting boxes. The lower garden had been roped off around a shallow, muddy strip, where the rain barrel overflow system had just been tested. Patricia read the sign, then looked toward 40 witnesses. The HOA president does not queue for access within her own community. This is my property, I said, and everybody queues. Her reaction moved through the full life cycle of suburban authority. First disbelief, a slow blink, and a tiny backward tilt. Then anger, red rising from her collar like a thermometer in a cartoon furnace. Then attempted authority. She raised the clipboard and began citing Article 9 from memory, including 3 paragraphs that did not exist. Finally, she saw Martin's county badge, Cal's camera, Evelyn's legal pad, Officer Ruiz's body camera, and 37 phones pointed in her direction. That should have been the moment she stopped. Instead, Patricia created her own ending. For the record, she said loudly, I instructed Leonard to enter this property last night and complete a preliminary inspection, but your locked gate obstructed official association business. Leonard's head snapped toward her. Susan Kim said, You sent him here at night? At 11:40 p.m., Patricia said, mistaking specificity for innocence. He was unable to obtain the photographs I requested because Mr. Carter interfered by securing his premises. Leonard took 2 steps away from her. Mrs. Wexler, you told me the owner had consented. Consent is established by the declaration. Evelyn's pen stopped. Please keep talking. Patricia finally heard herself, but only enough to become louder. The board has the absolute right to inspect any exterior improvement at any reasonable time. I will demonstrate that right now. She pushed through the gate before Martin opened it for the group. Patricia, stop, I said. Ma'am, remain behind the rope, Martin said. Do not enter the marked area, Officer Ruiz added. 3 warnings from 3 people, each clear enough to engrave on stone. Patricia marched past the folding chairs, ducked beneath the yellow rope, and headed directly for the staircase. She was watching me, rather than the ground. Her right sneaker landed in the narrow overflow strip, a perfectly legal, clearly marked band of wet soil 6 inches deep. The mud accepted her foot, with the enthusiasm of a valet finally receiving a luxury car. Her shoe stopped. Patricia did not. She windmilled both arms, flinging the clipboard upward. It opened in the air and released 30 pages of violation notices, which fluttered across the native garden like bureaucratic pigeons. Patricia grabbed the rain barrel post, spun halfway around it, and sat down squarely in the mud with a sound like a sofa cushion resigning. Nobody laughed for almost 2 full seconds. Then Gary Bell made a strangled noise. Douglas covered his mouth with a donut. One of the bird cookies fell from Susan's hand. Even Leonard turned away, shoulders shaking like a washing machine containing 1 boot. Patricia rose with mud across the back of her white slacks, and 1 shoe missing. The wide-brimmed hat had fallen over her face. She pushed it up and pointed at the tower. This hazardous condition proves my case. Martin Voss looked at the rope she had ducked under, the sign she had ignored, and the 3 phones that had recorded both. No, he said. It proves the rope was correctly placed. Patricia pulled her shoe from the mud with a wet pop and tried to climb the staircase. Martin stepped in front of her. The structure is closed until I complete the inspection. I am the HOA president. I inspect buildings, Martin said. I don't inspect titles. Cal turned aside and coughed into his beard. But the beard was not large enough to conceal the smile. Patricia pivoted toward Officer Ruiz. Arrest Mr. Carter for obstructing association access and maintaining a dangerous nuisance. Officer Ruiz looked at me. He looked at the permit displayed beside the gate. He looked at Patricia's muddy slacks, the ignored rope, and Leonard, who was now explaining to Evelyn that Patricia had offered him $300 cash for nighttime photographs. Mr. Carter invited you to a public inspection, Ruiz said. You entered a restricted work area after 3 warnings. Nothing here supports an arrest. Then cite him. For what? For this. Patricia swung her clipboard at the tower, but most of its pages had escaped into the pollinator garden. For creating an illegal treehouse. Martin raised the inspection card and signed the final box at 10:26 a.m. It's not an illegal treehouse, he said. As of right now, it's a compliant wildlife observation tower. Cal attached the county certification plaque to the lower post. The brushed aluminum plate read Lantern Fox Wildlife Observation Station, Site 014, and bore both the county seal and the permit number. Lucy stood beside me, gripping Anna's binoculars. I felt her hand slide into mine. Patricia stared at the plaque. The anger drained from her face, leaving the slow gray horror of a person watching her own email become a public monument. By attaching our application to her message and ordering residents to examine it, she had satisfied the program's public notice requirement. By insisting on a formal inspection, she had ensured the county, police, board members, neighbors, and cameras were all present for certification. By announcing the attempted nighttime entry, she had supplied evidence of conduct even her own board had not known about. Susan Kim opened her binder. Patricia, she said, did the board authorize Leonard's inspection? The president has operational discretion. Did the board authorize the $1,100 legal fee charged to Mark's account? Patricia's eyes moved toward Douglas. Douglas lowered his donut. We don't have a lawyer named on retainer. Administrative legal preparation is a valid expense, Evelyn said. Who received the money? Patricia clutched the muddy clipboard to her chest, like a life preserver made of office supplies. This is not the proper forum. Susan looked around at the owners, the officials, and the video cameras. For once, I think it is. Officer Ruiz took Leonard's statement regarding the attempted entry. No one was arrested that morning. Patricia had not crossed the locked gate, and Leonard had declined to trespass once he discovered there was no consent. But Ruiz documented the incident and advised Patricia, in the flat voice of a man whose breakfast had been delayed by ornamental government, not to enter or direct anyone else to enter my property without permission. Then he surveyed the certified tower, the muddy president, and the children eating bird cookies. This was a treehouse dispute, he said. You people gave it a county seal. The inspection continued without Patricia. Martin checked every stair, railing, bolt, and enclosure. Cal verified the equipment and habitat plan. At 11:18, Lucy made the station's first official entry. 2 silver-crowned thrushes, 1 woodpecker, 4 chickadees, and 1 HOA president departing at unsafe golf cart speed. The consequences arrived faster than migrating geese with a favorable tailwind. That afternoon, Susan and Douglas called an emergency board meeting for June 2nd. 61 homeowners attended, a Briar Glen record previously held by the 2019 debate over whether taupe counted as beige. Leonard submitted his written statement. I provided the recording from my driveway, Patricia's emails, the 14-minute denial, the unsupported charges, and the video of her admitting the nighttime inspection order. The HOA's bookkeeping contractor then produced a detail everyone had missed. The $1,100 legal review charge had never been paid to council. Patricia had created it as an internal assessment and moved it into a discretionary enforcement reserve she controlled. She had not stolen the money, but she had invented a charge without board authorization and applied it only to me. That was enough. The board voted 2-1 to remove Patricia as president. Patricia cast the dissenting vote for herself, then declared the vote invalid under Article 4, Section 7. Susan calmly read Article 4, Section 7 aloud. It concerned replacement of damaged pool furniture. The owners held a recall election 12 days later. Patricia lost 118-7. 2 of her 7 votes came from ballots she had submitted as proxies without valid signatures, so the certified result was 118-5. The association's insurer required governance training, a financial audit, and a written access policy before renewing coverage. All $3,925 in charges against me were erased. The HOA reimbursed my $950 legal review, and paid a $1,500 settlement for the unauthorized enforcement costs, which I donated to the county habitat program in Anna's name. Susan Kim became interim president. Her entire inaugural speech was, "Please keep your properties safe, pay your dues, and try not to create a constitutional crisis over a bird feeder." The neighborhood loosened like a necktie after a very long wedding. Gary installed native flowers beside his grill, though he continued to monitor the blue jay. Meena Patel brought her grandchildren to the first Saturday bird count. Douglas Peel handled refreshments and never again voted before reading the relevant paragraph. Kids rode bicycles past Patricia's house without lowering their voices. Hedges grew 3 inches beyond their former approved geometry, and civilization somehow continued. Patricia resigned from the board, sold her home 4 months later, and moved to a downtown condominium on the 21st floor. It had no yards, no sheds, no tree houses, and a professional management company that prohibited residents from operating golf carts in the lobby. Lantern Fox Wildlife Station recorded 86 bird species in its first year. Lucy leads the youth count now. Anna's notebook sits in a glass front cabinet on the upper deck beside the official log, and her binoculars hang from the hook closest to the east window. Every spring, the silver-crowned thrushes return to the greenbelt. Sometimes I sit up there at sunset with Lucy, 2 mugs of cocoa, and my coffee, which is still cold, because apparently no level of government can fix that. The county plaque catches the last light. Beneath it hangs a smaller sign Gary gave us. It says, "This treehouse has been promoted." So tell me in the comments, if your HOA reported your treehouse, would you remove it or get the county involved? If this climb through suburban authority made you laugh, like the video, subscribe, and come back to HOA Uncensored. Patricia wanted the treehouse brought down, so naturally we raised its status.